Park the crumpled car on its side after a man run up to the car, grab a piece of
very
metal.
much. She's upside down. She's still breathing. Can't do
at the scene. She was given blood
and ran and jumped into the bushes of that house.
Bandito Gold Coast Sergeant-at-Arms, Lionel 24-year-old Tara Brown lay critically injured and trapped.
It's very sad to see this level of domestic violence.
The male's walking around the street now. He's aggressive. He's trying to hit her while she's trapped in the car.
Okay, is anybody inside the house?
Okay, that's okay. No, the people in the car's fine. The people in the house are fine. They're outside. I don't think anyone's heard it. Just the lady that's in the car that's come off the road and into the house.
Okay. The female, is she moving inside the car?
Yes, but she's stuck. We can't get her out.
So is she alive? Is she alive?
Yes, she's alive. She's alive, but I don't think it's good.
She was just a black and blue and bloodied shell lying on the bed, bandaged from fucking head to toe, holding on by a thin thread. She was now on life support, and she would be getting transferred to intensive care. My daughter.
Women involved in relationships with outlaw motorcycle gang members, generally they're trapped. Once they're in, they are trapped. There is no place for women in outlaw motorcycle gangs. They were only ever used. There is no loyalty within relationships. I've personally witnessed physical violence against members' wives. They do have an ownership that once they feel that they control that woman, that woman's their property.
If someone gets caught up with someone in the outlaw motorcycle gangs, then they are at much higher risk. I think there's a lot of intimidation, fear, sexual violence. But at the end of the day, I think what's most dangerous is that entrapment for the female partners. So when women want to leave domestic violence, generally, it's really difficult. They need a lot of help with safety planning, etc., to get out. But for the female partners of motorcycle gangs, that whole entrapment is far worse.
I met Tara when she was 16, and I met her through my cousin, so Shelley, and we pretty much would just hang out and go out together, have fun together. Would always just be doing things, go and watch her touch games. Pretty much when there was something to do, us three would do it together.
I was just so drawn to who she was. She was just such this kind, beautiful, soft spirit, and I just loved being around her, and it was just like that really natural connection that it was just, we were joined at the hip.
I think a lot of people get mixed up with the story that she knew and she met Lionel at school. She didn't. She knew of him, a distant friend, but never was close to a relationship with him. She had had other serious relationships. One particular weekend I remember when she first got back in contact with Lionel was, I hadn't heard from her for a few days, and it was the weekend. She had gone Friday night and it was Sunday, and I still hadn't heard from her, and that was really not normal. And that's when I reached out and I had texted her, hey, where are you? She said, oh, I'm hanging out with an old friend. So she came back home and she had shown me the photo, and that was the first time I had seen Lionel. And she had told me, oh, I'm starting to hang out with this person. That was my first encounter, my first real idea of who this Lionel was.
Tara's relationship with Lionel accelerated rather quickly. At the 3-month mark, she came to me and told me she was pregnant. and asked me, "What do I do, Mum?" I said, "I cannot tell you what to do because you're an adult now, you're 20 years of age." I asked her to go away and think about it for 48 hours and have a really good think about what she wanted to do. And I let her know that I would support her in whatever decision she makes. And she came back to me after 48 hours and told me she would keep the baby because she was confident she could raise the baby on her own should she need to.
She wanted a family, she wanted kids. That was what Tara wanted, she just wanted a family. So he'll always just promise her that that's what she's going to have. That family, that house, that home that she always craved.
Lionel came home one day and informed Tara he was now a member of a gang, namely the Banditos. It broke Tara, it shattered her, she was devastated, she didn't know what to do.
I saw photos on Facebook and on Instagram of him wearing the patches and around certain people in the gang. And I had asked Tara, and she had said, yeah, he's been in the gang for about 5 months now. And I've been trying to so hard tell him to leave and to get out, but he won't listen to me. I think what my sort of reaction to that was, Tara, you've really got to watch this. You've really got to watch what's going on here. And I'm here for you, you know, whenever. And I remember feeling really scared at that point for Tara, yeah.
She was so hurt, so devastated when she found out that he was affiliated and then became a part of the bikies, and even his position that he was. She didn't really understand that either, but I think that was a way of her blocking that out because of what he did, what his role was. He was Sergeant of Arms. Everyone that knows what that is.
Do you know what that is?
It's an enforcer. Someone when there's a debt owed or someone's got to go and hurt someone or get someone to pay something, which is normally around drugs or anything, he goes and deals with it. Whether that's killing people, hurting them. I even seen a change in his nature. He became ruthless.
The clubs are very intelligent in how they introduce people and how they groom people into becoming violent people. It's a slow process of conditioning somebody to violence, because I wasn't a violent-natured person to start with, and then slowly as the violence escalates and progresses, it just gets to a point where for me, you know, I didn't know how to escape because it consumes every part of your life.
Earlier in Tara and Lionel's relationship, she was the girlfriend. But as it progressed and he joined the gang and got deeper into the gang scene, she became a possession. She was no longer a girlfriend. She became, you're my showpiece. You're my possession. Emotionally and mentally, he drained her. He sucked the life out of her. She was a radiant, go-getter girl, you know, woman. And I could see her crumbling from the inside, you know, and becoming the shell of who she really was.
It was probably about 6 to 8 months into the relationship where I noticed that there was a bit of control. And so just small things, like she wasn't allowed to do just the normal things that we used to do together, you know, go to the beach together, go and visit a friend.
From that moment, a lot of things changed. We didn't see her as much. He got so involved in everything that she did. He kept her isolated, but I don't think she's seen it. She didn't see what he was doing.
And then it just slowly crept into a little bit more control. So lots of phone calls. I think I remember being in the car when it got really bad. And I remember being in the car, we were driving to the beach, and he must have called, it was a 10-minute drive, and he must have called about 10 times to see where she was, what lights she was at, and what area she was in. And we had to name the shop that we could see, if we could see a shop. Yeah, it got to that type of control. When I would ask, or when the phone hung up and I would ask, what's this about that he's calling so much? I don't know. It was her response, I don't know. Very on edge was what she started to become. When the controlling like that happened, it was as though she was just on edge. Why is he calling this much? What's happening? It was as though she was too afraid or too scared to say what she was really feeling or what she was really thinking.
The domestic violence cycle, it starts off with the promises and the gifts and the make you feel good things, and then it comes around to you're starting to piss me off again, and then you're really pissing me off again, and that's when the violence happens. The violence isn't always physical. It can be, in Tara's case, it was coercive control. He controlled her financially, sexually, mentally, emotionally, and just controlled her life. He stopped her from seeing friends. He stopped her from visiting her family. He, even though Tara went against his wishes, her 2-hour period at my home to have dinner or something, there would be at least a dozen phone calls and maybe 20 text messages.
When we talk about coercive control, we're really talking about those parent control dynamics. And some perpetrators will use parent control to get that ultimate control over their victim. Some will actually increase those tactics if they think it's slipping away. So, when Tara was reaching out, talking to friends, talking to Natalie, getting support, from her workplace, they resent that and they'll increase those tactics to try and isolate them and, remove them, I guess, from any help they may get.
When Lionel was at the pad, Bandito's clubhouse, Tara had come over, and she was pregnant at the time. She came and hung out for a few hours, and he wanted some type of food, I think it was, and it was time for her to go and pick him up because he wanted to be picked up. Because she forgot to bring him this certain type of food, he ripped all her clothes off and threw rubbish bins at her car. And she was 9 months pregnant in front of all his friends.
I raced down to Broadbeach. I didn't know where she was. I finally found her from her direction she was giving me. She didn't know the name of the street. She had found a sarong in the back of her car which she had wrapped around herself. Her windscreen was smashed. The side mirrors of her car were kicked off. He'd thrown the keys away. I found her in a bawling heap. She was just crushed, absolutely crushed. I put her into my car. I drove her straight across the road to the Broadbeach police station to lay charges and get a domestic violence order in place.
And did that happen?
She did not lay charges because she was frightened of the consequences if she should lay charges, but she did get a domestic violence order in place. Tara wouldn't reveal the consequences to me, but they were enough to put fear in her not to lay charges or not to do other things, not to tell anyone, to keep this all a secret, to put on a facade that the relationship was fine. It wasn't fine. He financially controlled her. He took control of her earnings, her money. The sexual violation, she had to have sex with him when he demanded it.
When we talk about coercive control, though, I always like to stress there's a lot of forms of violence, you know, going from physical to sexual, financial, etc. But often it's not just one. They'll flip between behaviours. It's like they've got a toolkit with all of these strategies they can use, and they'll pull them out to suit the occasion. I think that if you're a victim of domestic violence, of course you need to get support. You know, there's the DV Connect, the telephone service, there's domestic violence services around the state. I think you need to get sound advice from people that know domestic violence and how to work with it and how to start to build safety plans for you well before you consider leaving.
The one experience that sticks out to me the most, which was started changing my perception of the environment that I was in, was we had a party night in Surfers Paradise in a hotel, and the night had gone on. A lot of drugs that were taken amongst everybody. Is probably a group of 10 men and 20 girls. At the end of the day, or the end of the night, the following morning, everybody had gone home. The president, he sat everybody down that was there, all the members and the noms from our club, and specifically said that he was embarrassed of the girls that came here because none of them would put out, and that next time if girls come and they aren't willing to put out, that they can be raped. That aspect of sexual violence especially was something that was very foreign to me.
There were many times that he pushed and shoved her. I would not say beat her, but pushed and shoved her while she was pregnant. He smashed her windscreen on 3 occasions. Come 9 months and Tara's water broke. She went to the doctor. The doctor said, go home, take it easy. If nothing has happened by Sunday, I want you to come to the hospital and we'll induce you to start your labour. Lionel turned up and Tara told him this. So he arranged that he would pick her up and take her to the hospital. I went up to the ward that she was in. I walked into the room. Tara's on a bed there. He's on the far side of the bed. My focus was solely on Tara. This is my firstborn, having her firstborn, and it's my first grandchild. So my focus was solely on Tara. We just locked eyes and smiled at each other, and I went over and gave her a big hug and started catching up on the progress of the morning. And Lionel left the room, and then Tara's phone rang about an hour later, and it was Lionel, and he was screaming down the phone, "Your of a mother is a rude bitch, and I'm coming back to slit her throat." And this obviously sent Tara into tears. She didn't have it on speakerphone, but it was that loud that I heard it. The midwife in the room heard it. And Tara just went into a bawling mess. She was frightened for me because she took his threat very seriously, as in the past. And I just kept saying to her, end call, end call. This is meant to be the most beautiful day of your life, and it's not anymore.
Of the examples that I know, fathers don't shy away from being violent towards their partners, whether the kids are around or not. Generally, the fathers are always very absent in the child's life in a practical sense, more a bit of token showing of parenting. But there's no genuine care for their kids, putting them constantly in harm's way, given that lifestyle, given the nature of violence. It turns on anyone at the drop of a hat. It doesn't matter who you are and what rank you have or what club you're in. The violence will come for you eventually in some form, and people don't shy away whether your kids are there or your wife's there, or there are no rules.
Tara had a 3-bedroom duplex in Gilston, and that's where her and Aria went after she left the hospital. At around 2 months, when Aria was around 2 months of age, I got a distress phone call from Tara again. "Ma, can you come to my house? They've taken the baby." I said, "Who's taken the baby?" "Lionel and his mum." I said, "Why?" "Just come to my house." So I raced down to the house. She's sitting there absolutely bawling, a brand new mum minus her brand new baby. He'd turned up, they'd had an argument. The argument got heated. He rang his mum, said, "Get here, I'm taking my baby," and they left. It was only when I got there, I telephoned the mum and I asked her to bring the baby back. I said, "If you needed to remove anybody, it should have been just your son from the situation."
And what happened then?
They brought the baby back. I then took Tara with me to my new partner's home because Lionel didn't know where he lived, and I had her out there for another 2 months.
Was Lionel communicating or attempting to communicate with Tara during that time, as far as he knew?
Oh, every single day, every single hour, every single minute.
And how did he do that?
Via telephone calls and text messages, wanting to know where she was and who she was with and what she was doing. The coercive control coming into play. Somehow, I don't know how, contacted Tara saying he knew where she was, and he gave her an address that was too similar to the street that we were living in. So I took her down to the Coomera police station. I thought, we cannot risk anything and we need to go to the Coomera police station now. They then went around and arrested him. So she returned to her Gilston home and continued as best as she could. She was a great mum. When just after Aria turned 1, Tara went back to work. She was very keen to get back to work. She put Aria into daycare and I would have her 1 day a week. She applied for 3 jobs in 1 day and got 1 job with a new lawyer, and it was a PA position. Lionel was released from prison and immediately made contact with Tara because he wanted to, his reason being he wanted to see his baby. On the many visits that he made to Tara's home, he started to mould her and wiggle his way back into his life with promises of being respectful to her and starting new, being a good dad, being a good partner. And I saw it as the domestic violence cycle coming around again. And I sat waiting for it to get to the violent stage again or the controlling stage again. And sure enough, it happened.
He would ring me 20 times a day, 30 times a day, wondering what I know about Tara. He was paranoid. He would ring me and say, hey, I heard she's been with this guy. Tell me the truth now. That's how he would talk to me. Tell me the truth, Kylie, I know you need to know the truth. And I'd say, I don't know what you're talking about, Lionel. And he would hang up. Then a minute later, he'll ring me again. Hey, it's me again. I then called Tara and I had told her, I'm scared. You need to leave him. There's something wrong with him. She kept crying and I said to her, I'm sorry. I love you. I love you and Aria. You need to get away. And when you get away, we'll come back together. I promise. And I told her that, but you need to leave him because something bad's gonna happen. I told her that. I knew it in my heart. I knew something's gonna happen.
Tara mentioned to me why she didn't want to leave, and one big one was because of the threats that she would receive. If she was to ever try and leave him, he would kill her, or he would try and kill her mum. And that's what I think a lot of it was why she stayed, was because of that fear that he would do something to her family or her friends.
Why didn't she leave? Many reasons. The main reasons are the threats that were made against the ones she loved the most, including myself, including her brother, my parents.
A lot of the women maybe think that they're going to change them. They'll be the woman in their life that settles them down and moves them away from the criminal aspect of that lifestyle. But that's never usually the case. They're always one of many. There is no loyalty to women in relationships in outlaw motorcycle gangs.
With Tara, she would work all the time. The money she got, he spent. He controlled what she did with the money. So sometimes, if she wanted certain food, she wouldn't have money in her account. But he'll have all the money because she's paid most of the bills. Yes, he paid stuff as well, but he always knew what she had in her bank account. And this one day, I was going away for the night. I knew her and baby were hungry. And I told her, I'll go and get you guys something to eat. So I went and got them something to eat. Lionel was asleep in the room. At the time, he wasn't up. So I just got her and baby something to eat. This is a normal thing to do for a friend. He had another friend over at that time as well. And I left. They were happy, everyone was happy. Lionel was in bed sleeping. And I get a text message from his friend saying he just hit her. And I text back and I said, oh, what happened? What's going on? I just left. Oh, because he never got any food. He dragged her by the hair in the lounge to the kitchen and threw her on the floor. Called her a dog. And why didn't he get any food? And I text back the friend and I said, what did you do? What did you do? He said, nothing. And I was so angry and upset because it's over stupid food. And then I had went back the next day and I knew I was going to have a talk to Tara about how we're going to get her out.
But the domestic violence cycle continued to turn and turn. He promised, he violated her. He promised, he violated her. It continued. I moved Tara in, I moved Tara out. I'd move her back in, I'd move her out again. Right up till 2015.
Slowly through the years, you just see this bright light just dim. And I know in her last days, Nat told me she wasn't herself.
I took Tara back to her home. I said, pack your things and get out before he gets here. She was in the process of doing that when he intercepted her in the driveway.
What happened when he intercepted her in the driveway?
He dragged her inside. I do believe he held scissors to her throat. He strangled her. He did not give her food. He kept her locked in that room. He took a very degrading video of her cowering in the driveway, calling her a slut, a fucking bitch, a mole, or everything you could think of. Just posted it on social media. This is what happens when you're a slut and a fucking mole. She's on the ground cowering. So I don't know whether he had something that he was threatening her with, whether it was just physical violence where he had a weapon, I don't know. Tara confided in her boss. Tara's boss, Jason, was absolutely blown away. He said, we're going to get you safe. We're going to get you out of town. We're going to get you away from this person. Tara rang me to pick Aria up from kindy, so I did. I got to her work and Tara and Jason are sitting in the boardroom planning her escape and her safe escape. Tara was leaving for good this time. She was never going back. She was so full of fear. She was unrecognisable. The fear in her eyes, the pain she was experiencing. My daughter didn't look like my daughter. She wasn't acting like my daughter. Jason and Tara had been in contact with DV Connect. They had organised a hotel in Brisbane for the night. And then she was told she'd be moved to a refuge the next morning.
Okay, what happened then?
She now had a new phone, so I was able to contact her and she was able to contact me. She was in fear of her life. She stayed to protect us until the last time when she left. And your most dangerous point in leaving a relationship like that is when you leave. We were all advised to be prepared because he would be looking for Aria and Tara. He went to everyone's home. Everyone, looking for Aria and Tara. And he continued for the next couple of days.
Up until the final day?
Yeah.
What happened that day?
Tara had returned to the Gold Coast from the refuge. She'd put Aria into daycare for the day so she could get some things done. And he was lying and waiting for her at the daycare. He contacted the daycare to see if Aria would be there for the day. She was trapped in her car. Neighbours and people in the area had come out to help Tara. They heard the accident. Well, they thought it was an accident. He parked 50 metres up the road. He got out of his car and walked back towards Tara's car. On his walk back to Tara's car, he picked up a 7-kilo fire hydrant cover. The neighbours thought Lionel was there as a member of the public to help this poor young woman trapped in her car. They were oblivious to who he was and what was about to happen.
Scout Telstra 128 713. Thank you. Hello, police emergency.
Hello, sorry, yeah, we need the police and an ambulance.
It was a heavy, heavy piece of metal, and he hit her 26 times. He hit her that hard and that violently. It took her within inches of her life. The beautiful people that were trying to help her tried to fight him off, but they were unsuccessful.
Hi.
Hello, is that Natalie?
Yes, it is.
Natalie, it's Dennis from the Police Communications Centre.
Yes.
I'm just ringing in relation to your daughter.
Yes.
That she's been involved in a traffic accident.
Oh my God.
And she's currently up at the Gold Coast University Hospital.
When I arrived at the hospital, the doctors came back in with the police officers and detectives, and we were told as a group what had happened. We were also told that Tara's head injuries were non-survivable and that we could go and see her now. So Tara was then moved to intensive care, put on life support, and now I had the horrible decision to decide when we would turn the life support off. The hospital staff and the intensive care staff were fantastic. So very compassionate and understanding. So many people came to see her for the last time.
And I'm just screaming on the phone, it's not true, it's not true, can't be true. And you just feel so guilty. You feel guilty, you just think, did I do enough? I knew this was going to happen. I knew he was going to do this. That's all that kept going through my head, is what type of friend was I?
We turned Tara's life support off at 5 p.m. on Tuesday evening, the same day that Lionel attacked her. Tara didn't die until 9 p.m. on the next night. she hang on for another whole day.
I didn't make it to her coming off life support. So I just remember my heart just sunk. When I had seen the article. And I thought, when 2 ladies happened, the nightmare that I'd been having that would happen to her, it happened. And I couldn't believe it.
She was a 24-year-old young mother with, you know, an aspiring outlook to life that was cornered in a relationship with a bandito.
So for someone thinking, for young girls out there thinking of getting into a relationship with a gang member, don't do it. Don't put yourself through it. Don't put your family through it. You're so much more worth. You're worth so much more than that life.
As much as she tried to fight and stay, she lost her person and who she was. And as a friend, seeing that deterioration, it's heartbreaking. Because what a waste of a beautiful person and a beautiful life.
Women starting relationships with members of outlaw motorcycle gangs, there are no genuine positives that come from it. Of all the members that I have ever known, not one has a happy relationship with their long-term partner. Whether they have children together, whether they've been together for 20 years and in and out of jail, the women have always been mistreated. Of any people that I've ever witnessed, it is always violent in their relationships.
It's not all it's made out to be. The buff look, the flash cars, the big motorbikes, the tattoos. Those things aren't going to treat you the way you want them to. It's just a look. It's a facade. It's a mask to hide behind. Those people aren't being the real people that they could be.
Following Tara's death, we held a Red Rose rally in Brisbane. It was attended by about 300 people. And we formed that close connection with Tara, and we supported Natalie right through to the trial. There was, I think, someone from the Red Rose Foundation there most days, and the day of sentencing we had a Red Rose rally outside the court. So we had quite a long involvement. That week, actually, in Queensland was a horror week. You know, there was another woman murdered the next day, and then there was a 6-year-old child murdered the day after. So, you know, I think that week in particular brought home the extent of the problem that we're dealing with. I guess the main message from, you know, the tragic death of Tara is women and young women wanting to get involved with a gang member. I'd be saying no. You know, don't. I think that we've got to start teaching young women about what a respectful relationship looks like. What do they want in life, and not get carried away with someone that's potentially going to abuse them, mistreat them and potentially kill them. The first time that there's a push or a shove or a slap, they get the roses, they get the nice dinner, and it's all going to be okay again. But it's only going to be okay till the next one, and then the next one, and then they'll end up in hospital, or they'll, you know, the violence just escalates. As I said, it might start out a push and a shove, but the work we do now is with strangulation victims, and we're seeing women with life-threatening health consequences months and months after the strangulation. I think they need to reach out to organisations, including QPS, that can help them to make that transition to safety. We've got a network of women's shelters in Queensland. We've got domestic violence telephone service that's 24 hours. Even going to your local community centre, they will know where domestic violence services are. But the main thing I keep stressing is, you know, it has to be safety. You have to be able to talk to people confidentially and in a very safe environment. I think it's crucial that they get the right support. It's not a matter of just walking out the door. It's a matter of, you know, really planning that, and they can be at risks for that for a long time. You know, a lot of people say, well, why don't you leave? You know, or if it was me, I'd get out of there. But it takes a lot. It takes a lot to be able to do that and navigate their way around all the systems out there in the safest possible way. I think that that fear is real, and I think the fear that of what their partner may do is real. And look, you can't give any guarantees about, you know, what outcomes might be. But I'd always say to women, doing nothing's not keeping you safe either. So how can we work together to get the best possible outcomes for you? The more awareness that we can do, the better. I think that awareness is the key. And, you know, we've got to keep following all our endeavours to get that out there. And that's certainly something, you know, close to what we do.